everybody, and welcome, and thank you very much for joining us today. I'm Adam Smith. I'm the Programme Director for Dementia Researcher, and we're really pleased to be supporting the SPIN-D Network Plus and helping them share information on opportunities like this one. Today's live stream focuses on round 2 of the SPIN-D Flexible Funding Call. This session is designed to walk you through what the call is all about, what it aims to support, and offer some practical guidance if you're thinking about applying. We're joined today by Professor Georgina Charlesworth, who is there. Hi, Georgina. And we may also be joined by Professor Chris Fox, who's Georgina's co-lead, who we'll bring in. And we also have the incredible Steve Kennedy, who is one of their lived experience contributors. First of all, let me just bring up the program and show you how today's session is going to work. Essentially, we start off with Georgina, who's going to share some slides and talk you through the funding call. Then we're going to hear from Steve, who's going to talk about this public and patient involvement aspects of things and that work and the importance of including participants in this research. And then at the end, we're going to have a chance for you to put your questions to us, and we'll share the links and everything at all times with a QR code and things which you can find. I'll post those in the comments in a little while, where you can find details, written details on the funding call as well. But with that, I think that's enough for me. I'm going to hand over to Georgina now, who is going to talk us through the details.
Thank you. So thank you for that introduction, Adam, and welcome everybody. As Adam said, my co-lead Chris Fox is hoping to attend, but is, as often happens, sort of travelling from one place to another. So is hoping to drop in at some point during this meeting, but if not, then he sends his apologies. So SPIN-D is Sustainable Prevention, Innovation, Involvement for Dementia. It's one of the 4 ESRC funded Dementia Network Pluses. And part of the work of the Dementia Network Pluses is to distribute funding. So I'm talking today about the SPIN-D Flexible Fund. We had our first round of applications last year in 2025. So this is our 2026 round of funding, which is very broadly similar to the format that we had last year. But I'll take you through our different funding streams. So there's 3 different pots of funding. There's inclusion in practice, proof of principle, and also a specific data access fund that can be used in parallel with the proof of principle. So this first one, inclusion in practice, is designed for smaller projects, especially projects that are bringing partners together to develop ideas, develop approaches. So this fund is up to 5,000, and that includes the full economic cost contribution. So for all of our funds, they are according to ESRC rules, and we've got further details on our written materials that explain which organisations need to put their application in under the full economic cost criteria. For most universities, ESRC via us would provide 80% of the funds, looking for the university to cover that other 20%. But like I say, there's further details on that within the written materials that support this round, this call. So we're expecting to fund around 6 projects within the inclusion in practice stream. And if you would like to see some examples of the projects that were funded last year, we've got abstracts of all of those projects on our website, and the address is there on the right of this slide. So if you go to the SPIN-D website, look at Flexible Fund on the pull-down menu, and then you should be able to find the page that's got the details of those funded projects. And that's the same for our second larger funding stream, which is the proof of principle. We've similarly got those abstracts from last year as examples for you on the website. This is a bigger pot of money, can be up to 30,000, and it's looking to test an idea which might be the foundation for a new area of dementia research. Should also say It could also be used to try to implement some existing research. So if you already have been involved in a project, or if you're aware of an intervention, for example, that's previously been evaluated, but so far hasn't yet been implemented in health, social care, or the voluntary sector, and you're looking to actually evaluate an implementation, you could also use this larger fund for that as well. So for this, we're expecting to fund around 5 sort of projects. Right. I'm going to say now a little more about this data access fund, which we want to push particularly this year, because we didn't actually fund anything out of our data access pot last time round, and we're really keen to try to support people to carry out some of this work on databases. So our fund is up to the value of around 5,500. We have committed to funding at least 2 projects using the Protect database. So there's a QR code on the slide here, which gives you some access to more information about that Protect database, which is a longitudinal data set starting from people in their sort of 50s and tracking people through to look at sort of lifestyle and behaviours and people's cognitive status. So this additional data access fund can be used in combination with the proof of principle money. So it would be possible to add those 2 together. Because we're so keen to try to spend this special data access fund this time round, we're also going to be putting on a special event around not only the Protect database, but other data sets that might well, analyses of which might well lead to enhancing our understanding of the sorts of risk factors that there might be for dementia, or that might help us to support people to reduce the speed of decline, for example. So we are looking at either the 4th or 5th of March for that, and we'll be putting information on the website when the programme is finalised, and also we'll be making sure that Adam knows so that he can circulate that information through Dementia Researcher as well. So the call is open now. The details are now on the website. If you spot anything that you think hasn't been updated from last year, then do let us know. We think we've got all of those updates in there now, but sometimes when things are over multiple pages, sometimes things sort of slip through. So please do let us know if you spot any errors. But here's basically what we're looking for. The applications should be led by early career researchers. In terms of contracting, we're only able to give money to organisations that are eligible to receive UKRI funding. We do expect all applications, including those that are data projects, to involve people with lived experience in some capacity or another, and that capacity isn't as participants. Well, it might be as participants, but what we're talking about in terms of involvement is to have people who are perhaps acting in an advisory or a consultation role, or providing researchers with the opportunity to understand more of what it might be like to be somebody either living with dementia or concerned about whether dementia is part of their sort of future. So especially people who have supported perhaps younger family members with dementia. So we are looking for that involvement, and we'll be saying a little bit more about that in a few minutes. As I've mentioned, there are rules around the way in which the budget is laid out, and we are looking for the university's calculations will be on the basis of the full economic costing. So co-applicants don't have to be from UK universities. Co-applicants can be from international organisations, they can be from NHS organisations, community groups, charities, industry, tech companies, And again, we really encourage teams that have stakeholders from sort of different kinds of organisations. So we're really keen to see those collaborations between universities and other stakeholders wherever possible. Okay, so say something about our priority areas. We are particularly keen to be looking at dementia risk reduction, projects that can support the understanding of factors influencing brain health, supporting people during early stages of dementia, so that includes innovative technological solutions and any interventions or approaches to support people with dementia and those that care for them. I should say that one of the things that we've tried to do with the 4 Dementia Network Pluses is to minimise the amount of overlap that there is between the 4, the way in which the networks spend their flexible fund. And the Empower network is particularly focusing on supporting people with dementia from the point at which they need more care, and then going through to supporting people who might be in residential or nursing care and people who are towards the end of life. So from SPIN-D, we would really encourage people who are looking to do, for example, care home projects or projects at about end of life, to take that to the Empower network. And our emphasis is on the earlier in the trajectory. So, for example, might be for people with subjective cognitive impairments, mild cognitive impairments, early stages of dementia, or who are living with dementia with support at home, but haven't yet required the kind of additional support that might well be necessary at some point. We, as I've already mentioned, we're keen to reduce research waste. And as we all know, there's an awful lot of effort that goes into developing new interventions that often then doesn't get implemented. And I think this is something that Adam and Dementia Researcher have actually even had some special seminars and webinars and discussions on. So within the SPIN-D flexible funding, we are keen to find opportunities to support people or people who themselves have created something that is now ready to be sort of implemented but needs an evaluation around that implementation, or people who are picking up on somebody else's previous research to sort of take that forward. Say a little bit more about priority areas. For all of the Dementia Network Pluses, we were encouraged to make sure that our flexible fund was supporting underrepresented groups. And we carried out a prioritisation exercise near the beginning, or rather we did a scoping to try to find what existing prioritisation exercises there were. And some of the groupings that were highlighted were people with learning disabilities who are at high risk of dementia, and also looking at geographical influences and socioeconomic status. So looking at those sort of health inequalities that might well play a part in increasing dementia risk. Since last year, we have now got 2 pan-network special interest groups. The first, which is co-chaired by a researcher who's aligned to Empower, and also a lived experience expert who is aligned to the SPIN-D project, is this rural and coastal special interest group. And we will be hosting a day on the 25th of February, which is the second meeting for an LGBTQIA plus grouping that first started at our annual event that was held in UCL East in July. And that will be exploring brain health and addressing inequalities. So certainly applications aren't restricted to these groupings, but we are keen to try to bring together people to get some kind of focus, because it's so easy in dementia for little things to be happening all over the place. And as a network, we're trying to get a critical mass in certain areas to bring about that step change that was requested from the funders for these networks. So if you're planning an application, we recently, as in earlier this week, had an event that we carried out jointly with the Interdem Academy, and we were pleased to have Martin Orrell, who's both the chair of the SPIND funding panel and also the founder of the Interdem Academy. And we asked him for some top tips. So this slide has got some of Martin's top tips for getting an application together, plus one or two things that I've added in as well. So one of the things that Martin said is be really clear from the start what it is you're looking to do. Where are you trying to get to? When you've finished, what is it that you want to be saying, right, this is what we've found, this is our output. So it doesn't necessarily mean preempt the answer to the research, but have an idea about what is the product, the output that you're looking for, and then work backwards from there. What method would it be best to use in order to lead to that kind of output that you're looking for? He also really strongly encouraged everybody putting in an application to make sure that the idea is really clear, to talk to others about it, ask whether it makes sense, see whether it would be possible to get across that idea in, for example, a 3-minute elevator pitch, or to try to cover everything in an A4 sheet of paper. And that kind of exercise can help really sort of clarify your thinking around what is this research about. And if you're able to provide a clear overview very briefly, that can often help to make sure that your message is clear when you complete an application form, such as the one for this funding. Something else to have a think about is, are the findings actually going to make a difference in the real world? So for this funding stream, we're really keen that we can see what next steps might be, or how the information might be used to try to make a difference. So we're not just looking for projects because they'd be interesting, it would be interesting to find out this, or it'd be interesting to find out that. We're wanting to know how the findings would make a difference to the lives of people at risk of dementia or living with dementia. Another point that Martin wanted to emphasize is really make sure you read the criteria and ensure that your application fits the criteria. If your application doesn't fit the criteria, it won't be funded. However brilliant it is, it might well be a very excellent idea and a beautifully written application, but if it doesn't fit the criteria, then we're not in a position to be able to fund it. Another thing to think about is whether plans are realistic, and whether others will also regard them as realistic, and whether they can be executed within the time and the funds that are available. And something that we would also encourage people, especially those of you who are new to putting in bids, is see whether you can find a mentor or advisor within your organisation who knows what the expectations are for your particular organisation, because we're not in a position to be able to advise or support the internal requirements that you have in your organisation. And all universities have their own little ways about what's expected in terms of internal steps to submitting a bid. Sometimes there are internal deadlines of when applications need to get to a head of department or research department. The research bidding sign-off people, whatever they're called within your organisation. And so don't find that you've sort of missed those internal deadlines just because you weren't aware that they were there. You know, find out, check out what needs to happen, what's the process, what's the is there a special website within your department where information needs to be input in order for the research team to then provide the relevant signatures? Or within your organisation, is the level of funding such that the pre-awards team don't need to be involved and things are sort of signed off within the department? That's going to vary from organisation to organisation. So we don't have any advice on that because we don't know all of your different organisations. So we'd really encourage you to find somebody locally within your organisation who's previously put in bids, who can steer and guide you to who you might want to be speaking to internally. Okay, so to give you an idea about the decision process, each stream, that's the proof of principle and the name of it's gone right out of my head. That's unhelpful, isn't it? But both streams have separate funding panels. And in those panels, there are both academic researchers and members of our core lived experience group who are offering a lay and lived experience perspective on those applications. So that includes some people with dementia and some family carers. So, oh, there we go. I didn't even need to worry about having forgotten it. It's here, the inclusion in practice. So both the proof of principle the proof of principle and the data access panel meet separately to that inclusion in practice panel and has different people on it. Last year, one panel had already finished its decision making before the next panel had even met. So we're aware that the outcome and the decision making on those panels came out at slightly different times. This year, we've given ourselves a little bit longer to actually take everything sort of through the review process because, as you might expect, there are really quite a number of applications that need reviews, and sometimes reviewers had competing demands that just put a little bit of a delay into our getting all of our reviews back. So we've learned from that, and this year we're giving ourselves a little bit longer to gather all of the review in and have an opportunity to give the time that you would want us to give to fully and properly assess all of those different applications. We would want the grants to start on the 1st of October this year. The maximum duration of those is 12 months, and we would want the final reports by the 30th of November 2027. We are keen that any of the work that you do then is disseminated and that information is shared. And there's some guidance on this in the written material, but also we will be looking to invite and involve those who receive funding at some of the events that we will be holding over these next few years. And we're always keen to support anything that you might be doing in terms of your own sort of outreach. So do let us know if you're writing blogs, if you're posting on social media, if you've got events that you would like us to share with others and publicise, because as you might be aware, we have our own sort of social media channels where we're looking to amplify the kind of work that's being done by people who have joined the network. Okay, so the final slide here has a rather strange picture of me. I do apologise, but that seems to be the picture that comes up for our, I'm sorry to say, for our video. But anyway, once you get beyond that strange picture, it has it gives you a good idea of what our positioning is for public involvement and co-production. So I would encourage people who are thinking of applying to the fund to take a little look at that. You can access that through our website and it's on our sort of YouTube channel. But rather than showing that video now, I'm very pleased to say that we have Steve Kennedy, who's been part of our funding, and I'm going to ask Adam to take those slides down and then hand over to Steve, who will introduce himself and let you know of what his role.
Right, thank you very much, Georgina, for that very detailed section. Good morning, everybody. My name is Steve Kennedy, and I'm proud to serve as a lived experience reviewer for the SPIN-D Flexible Fund. In 2016, I was diagnosed with frontotemporal lobal dementia. That moment changed my life, but it also led me towards a new purpose, using my experience to help shape the kinds of research that truly make a difference to people like myself. As a reviewer, I read through funding applications carefully, looking not only on what's being proposed, but at how they might genuinely improve the lives of those living with dementia and their families. Once I've reviewed each application, I meet with my colleagues on the panel to discuss its merits, its drawbacks. We have open conversations, sharing different perspectives before reaching a joint decision on which projects should be supported. What makes this process powerful is the collaboration between researchers, professionals, and people with lived experience. We each bring something vital. The researchers bring knowledge, the clinicians bring practice, and I, along with others living with dementia, bring the reality behind it all. When I look at an application, I focus on three main things. First is relevance. Does it speak to real needs and reflect the SPIN-D themes that matter most? Secondly, involvement. Are people with dementia genuinely part of the project, not merely mentioned as an afterthought, but included in its planning, its running, and its reflection? And thirdly, clarity and respect. Proposals should be easy to understand and written with thought for the people they are aimed to serve. For me, a strong application is one that combines sound science with humanity. It listens to those whose lives it hopes to improve. That's what SPIN-D does so well. It values partnership and ensures research grows with lived experience, not apart from it. Being part of this panel has shown me how powerful shared understanding can be. Together, we're shaping research that is not only meaningful, but truly person-centered. It's an honor to be involved and to know that through SPIN-D, our voices can make that happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. So I think we've done our talky bit, Adam. It's over to you.
Thank you very much, Georgina. And of course, what we should mention is we do also have Emily on hand. And thank you, Stephen, as well, for those. An important perspective that we've been talking about for so long is the importance of making sure that we have people with lived experience, not just as people who receive the results of the research, but really are at the heart of shaping it, not just from when the studies start to be delivered, but in the design of them in the first place, because that's what makes patient studies with good, strong co-production and patient and public involvement are the ones that are the most successful. You know that some of the challenges you face in delivery, kind of study recruitment and in participation can be resolved if you know that you've got people with lived experience at the heart of the design from the outset. So that's really important points there, Steve. Thank you. And thanks for Georgina. To be honest, I'm not sure we're going to get any questions this time because you were so comprehensive in your talk and saying what you want. We have had a few. So let's jump straight in with the questions. Just a reminder, whichever platform you're watching in, whether that's on Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, you can put your questions using the comments or in the chat. They'll all pop up here and we'll make sure we try to answer those. I do also have a couple of questions that have been sent in advance and a few standard ones that we kind of tend to ask in these on these occasions as well. And as I said, we do also have Georgina's trusty helper Emily on hand as well, who will jump in if we have a question we can't answer. So let's start with the first one. which comes from Irvin, who asks, we're a private limited company that's received funds from the NIHR based in the UK and are a home care provider. Are we eligible for UKRI funding, or more precisely for this funding call?
Well, I think that there's a definition on the definitely on the ESRC and the UKRI website about who is eligible, and there's a form of words that so it isn't just universities. There is another category that's also eligible for UKRI research, isn't there? Emily, I don't know whether you know what that form of words is, but if I think there's even a list on the UKRI website, isn't there?
Yes, it's not just universities, but there is a specific list, and I think it includes some NHS organisations as well. So there are some other exceptions, but generally speaking, it's mostly university.
Yeah, I think there's I think the thing to say, Irvin, is that as we were talking about earlier, our research is mainly for people before they need additional care, and it's the Empower network that are looking at supporting research where additional care is needed. So as a home care provider, I'd certainly sort of check out whether you would fit with the Empower work. And I'd also sort of encourage you to look at the UKRI website to look at the special additional categories of who fits in with their sort of funding. I'd say often limited companies not, but if you've been in receipt of NIHR funding, maybe the nature of your company is one that the UKRI would consider as well. So do check out their website for their definition.
Thank you very much. Let's take our next question, which is, may I ask, is a newly appointed lecturer less than 1 year classified as an early career researcher, or is it people need to have research-only contracts?
You don't need to have a research-only contract, and as long as you would fit, as long as you regard yourself as an early career researcher, I think that's good enough, isn't it, Emily?
Yes, it's quite flexible, and I think we would definitely consider somebody who was just at the beginning of a lecturer career to be an early career researcher.
That actually leads me nicely into a question which we received in advance, which is, I think I already know the answer to this, but for the benefit of the audience, does your university contract have to extend for the life of the project? Do you have to have an employment contract that covers the length of this contract? And do you also, can salaries be included in your application?
So remember, within the knowledge that it's only a relatively small pot of money, the answer is salaries can be included, but it needs to be at the full economic cost. I know that often for big grants, there's when's your retirement, when does your employment end? The key thing here is that the institution is in a position to be able to sort of look after the money. So I don't think we demand to know that somebody's contract goes beyond the ending, but the university needs to. I would definitely negotiate with your university about how they regard applications that go beyond the end of the project. Sometimes projects like this might encourage them to do things, for example, support some bridging funds between this and another role, or and depending on the nature of the contract, it might be that you're in a position to apply for other posts within the university. So especially for contract researchers, we know that there's that challenge of what happens next. So beyond the contract. So I don't think we would rule out people whose contract ended before the project was due to end, but I would absolutely sort of make sure that you knew what the rules and expectations were within your own organisation. Is there anything that you would add to that, Emily? Have I got it wrong? Is it?
Well, I mean, it is possible to include salary. So, I mean, I suppose if there was an ending in sight, then you probably would want to do that. If it was an ending, if your contract, in most cases, I think the contract would continue for the duration, and that we'd need to know that the project could continue and be completed.
So I think to answer your question specifically, Joyce, yes. Generally, I think that the general definition of early career researcher is anybody who is kind of pre-professor and tenure these days. I mean, it differs from place to place, but I think the suggestion there is that, you know, most career stages, and even then, I think even if you're, you know, more senior, you can have co-applicants that are early career research. In fact, I think that's very much encouraged these days, isn't it? If you're a more senior researcher, you know, that you bring on some early career researchers as co-applicants as well. That would be
or for this project, if you were a more senior person. The thing that people who can't apply for this funding as lead applicants are people who already receive money from SPIN-D as co-applicants, but it might well be that SPIN-D co-applicants, they could encourage an early career researcher to put in an application for this, and then for the more senior researcher to be sort of part of the team. But we are looking for these projects to be sort of led by people who are earlier in their career, in the hopes that it's something that acts as a stepping stone onto other things.
These are great grants for exactly that reason. So Joyce, yes, you would be eligible. Please do consider applying, get the details in there. If you don't have a contract that runs for the length of this, it's probably talking to the R&D and the research office in your institution about whether they're going to support your application, because you are going to need to put that through them anyway. I think the people that are particularly impacted by that are kind of PhD students who are at the end of their PhDs, who are thinking, hey, this would be a great first funding grant to get in on, in your own name with perhaps a more senior co-applicant along the side. And that's where you just need to make sure you've got that support in place. We've got another question, which I think is very similar here, which is, as a professor, to co-develop an application with an undergrad master's to extend the research interest in my lab. The idea was suggested by a student who reached out with some ideas. So do they all have to be brand new ideas, new research, or can this be building on some existing studies?
They absolutely don't need to be brand new, never thought of before. It's absolutely fine to build on and develop work that's already started. So yes, if for example, a team member has started on something in their masters and there's potential for that idea to be developed, I think the key thing here would be to work out who would lead on the application, because somebody who's professor wouldn't be fitting in our definition of early career researcher. So the professor wouldn't be able to lead, and the level of funding would only be enough to support somebody at research assistant level, for example, for a relatively short period of time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But if there's opportunities within the institution to, for example, I don't know, support a PhD student to be doing some of this work, or I think people have used funding really quite creatively last time round, I think, Emily. So some people did submit requests for salary costs, and other people were applying to do additional projects alongside something that was already funded. So I think some some people were already working on a project but were able to use the SPIN-D money to extend the work into additional populations that otherwise they might not have had the opportunity to reach out to and to involve. So sometimes the projects are very standalone, other times they're to enhance or augment something that's already happening, or to build on existing ideas.
And these grants are perfect for that, aren't you? Because we know that when you get a fellowship now, you've got a postdoc, quite often your salary's covered, but there isn't a, the actual project money is smaller. So being able to enhance and get money from this. So you I should pick up on an important point you made before there. So if you've already got SPIN-D flexible funding from round 1 last year, you're not eligible to be a lead applicant this year, but you could be a co-applicant on somebody else's.
Oh, no, I was, what I was meaning is, yeah, sorry if I wasn't clear. What I was trying to get across is that people who were part of the original bid for SPIN-D, people who were on the foundation funding for SPIN-D, they can't then get additional money from the flexible fund. But it's a very good point to raise. We were about whether people who are current holders of flexible funding, are they able to put in an application again? And I think the answer to that, Emily, just we decided that it's fine. People can indeed put in an application either to further develop their own work or to start on another project. But to bear in mind that in our ideal world, we would like the SPIN-D money to be a stepping stone to applying for bigger bids from other funders. But we won't be automatically ruling people out on the basis that they have previously received monies from the flexible fund.
And I assume that then counts for the other network pluses. I assume then that counts for the other network pluses as well. So if you're in receipt of say an Equidem or an Empower grant or from one of the other network pluses, you'd still be eligible to apply for yours.
Yeah, that's right. We've certainly not written an exclusion that says if you've got money from any network plus, whether it's ours or any of the others, then you can't have any more. We've not got any exclusion criteria like that. But as I've said previously, each of the networks do have slightly different focus and emphasis. So only apply to those funds where your project aligns with the main emphasis of that network.
Absolutely. So let's take another question. This is from Bethany, who asks, is the limit of £5,000 per project, or might there be scope to fund a larger projects if fewer than 5 projects are chosen? So, yeah, is this per project, or do you have an upper limit? You might fund one for more and have slightly fewer.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. We need to have spent all our money within this flexible funding pot before we get to the end of our project. And so there will be decisions that need to be made at some point about if we find we don't have enough projects to be able to spend our money, what do we do with any spare? Do we allow existing projects to up their costs a little, or do we allow some projects to be a little bigger, to overshoot that budget? I think what I can say is that last time round, the number of applications that we received meant that we pretty much spent what we had budgeted for last time. There was a little bit round the edges, but overall, we had applications to choose from, especially for the proof of principle funding pot. So I suppose if you want, you could put in a punt for something a bit more, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. I'd try to do a project that's within the funding limit. And then if we find that we've got some extra money, we will let people know how it seems best and fairest to deal with that in the future.
So maybe one way to do that is to write your application with the view that there's 5,000, but then add extra information, which is to explain that if there is further funding available, this is how we could spend another 5,000 or another 2,500. You know, and then that at least gives you the option, right? I mean, when you're reviewing these, you can go, do you know what? I really like this. Do you know what? Let's find the extra. Is there, I mean, that's a good question though. Is there going to be a third? Is this going to be repeated again in future? We're obviously on round 2 this time. Is there a round 3 planned?
No, there's no round 3 planned. However, as I've said, we do want to spend all of our flexible fund. So overall, the SPIN-D network is funded by the ESRC, NIHR, Alzheimer's Society until the 31st of March 2028. And so, as you saw from the timetable for this round of funding, we would want the final reports for these by November 2027, so that then we can kind of help with dissemination and things in our final few months. So this is definitely our last full round. If we find that we've got some spare costs, so we've already discovered that, you know, sometimes for some projects, there's something that happens from somebody's sort of personal life point of view or work life point of view that means that the project isn't actually able to sort of go ahead as originally planned. And there's the possibility that we don't have enough applications of good enough quality to allocate all of the funding this time round. You know, it's a possibility. So if we find we've got some spare money still in the flexible fund pot, we will need to work out what to do with it. And we'll also need to get ESRC approval for our plans. So we haven't even worked that out yet, because there's no point us going to a place that might not actually be necessary. You know, if the money is all allocated this time round, then that's our money done.
Absolutely. So we don't have any more questions from the chat at the moment, but please do. We do have a couple of comments about Wellcome Trust's definition of ECR being 3 years post FIVA. I don't think we're saying that doesn't apply in this instance. Shibley's saying, great to see you all. Are unpaid carers involved? I don't know if you've covered that, but maybe this is something you want. How are unpaid carers involved? Is there some both in the network and perhaps in some of those projects you funded the first time around?
So we have a core lived experience group of which Steve is a member, and that includes unpaid carers. I don't know, would you be able to comment on that, Steve, about anything about unpaid carers?
Yeah, the lived experience group does include unpaid carers. It all comes down to experience. Unpaid carers are also living through this condition, I'm afraid. So it affects them equally.
Yes, thank you. So with Steve in that core lived experience group, as he says, some family carers in addition to people living with different dementia diagnoses. And because we're only giving flexible fund monies to projects that have some kind of sort of lived experience involvement in the development, planning, execution, reflection of the research. Some of that will be with people with dementia, and some of that will be with family carers and unpaid carers.
Which brings up a good point. So if you're somebody watching this, which, you know, we have lots of community members who are people with lived experience and who would define themselves as lived experience researchers, because, you know, they're really at the heart. Could they apply? I mean, I'm assuming you'd want them to team up with somebody who works for an academic institution, but as a lead applicant, could a lead applicant be somebody living with dementia who teams up with a researcher as a co-applicant?
Yeah, that we're As long as somebody's aligned to an institution that is eligible to receive UKRI funding, they can have any background experience. So we're not limited to specific academic disciplines, and we're not limited to any particular prior work or lived experience. So you as a lived experience researcher, you'd be able to be involved in a couple of ways. One would be if you were actually signed up to an organisation that was eligible to receive UKRI funding. That would be one way. And the other way would be to be a co-applicant working perhaps in a voluntary or community sector organisation, or in an individual capacity, but aligned to a research group within an organisation that's eligible to receive UKRI funding.
We've talked a lot about, and we do have one more. We've got one more technical question, and then I would like to talk a little bit more about the kind of research that's going to be done. We've got about 5-6 minutes left. So the last technical question.
Before you do the last question, Adam, I'm just going to say hi to Shibli. Hi, Shibs, that asked that question, and just to say, Shibs is our 500th signee up onto our 500th follower on our LinkedIn page. So we're going to do we're hoping to do a little spotlight with you.
What took him so long to find you? That's what I want to know. The technical, and hello, Shibli, as always. Do master's level students or graduates qualify as early career researchers or only PhD students? Quick answer to that one.
Yeah, so graduates and master's students, as long as you are within an organisation that can receive the UKRI funding, there's likely need to be somebody who is also involved that can provide some sort of support. But yes, we are including that within the definition of early career researchers.
Thank you. And sorry, Steve, I'm going to come to you. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit because you're going to be looking at these applications. Is there any, I mean, I don't know how much involvement you have beyond once they're funded, whether you get a chance to kind of get a little bit hands-on and involved in some, I guess, maybe in some studies more than others. Is there any particular area at the moment that you feel doesn't get enough attention that you'd really like to see some applications come through on for you personally?
Me personally, one thing that stands out with absolutely everybody you speak to with dementia or a diagnosis of dementia is the driving license applications. People who have a driving license are being advised by GPs not to drive. Consultants are allowing you to drive, and the DVLA are allowing you to drive. But you drive on a restricted license of 12 months, and you have to reapply for your license every 12 months. But that's all well and good if the system works well. Currently, my license is 18 months behind the date it should have expired. So I'm driving around with a license that's totally expired. And the system is completely, no. I've spoken to DVLA and they told me just to drive away, that they know my application is in the system. They just have to wait till they get round to it. But it leaves people with serious worries. The DVLA will give you permission to drive, but how do insurance companies cover you in the event of a serious accident? Would they acknowledge that you have a license, or would they be looking to get out of things? So driving and independence are very, very high.
And that's great subjects as a whole, because we've looked at, I mean, public transport, you know, how public transport supports people to move around and in rural communities, and buses and access, and how people can be limited that way. Driving, as you say, is important. And these are real practical that affect, you know, day in, day out, isn't it? It's not the...
Very much so.
Yeah, and in terms of how that might fit into a research project, we might wonder, for example, are there any, I mean, nowadays, if you're a new learner driver, then you have a little black box fitted to the car, don't you, that monitors driving. And I wonder whether anybody has started to look at whether similar systems might support people who are driving with dementia as a way of providing information about sort of safe driving, for example.
Which would tie in nicely to your data access pot, because of course I would imagine that there must be some data sets out there that look at driving and age of drivers.
Yeah,
well, I just jump in there for a second?
Yes, maybe there are.
Anyway, I think you and I might have a grant application being written in the quickly in February. Sorry, you were going to say, you please jump in.
So just quickly, currently all trucks driving now have to have cameras fitted in the cab, facing the driver, recording the driver all the time. They cannot be switched off. And there has been murmurings of these being fitted to vehicles where the driver has a diagnosis of dementia. Mm-hmm. So how would people feel about this? Or what would be the implications? Because it feels to me as though you're being taken out of the system and picked at. General public wouldn't stand for it. So why would you have to take it with a disability? It's a very, very open minefield.
So there you go. If you're watching and you're struggling for ideas, you've got a free one there. Georgina, are there any others? And also as well, I'm interested kind of what makes a good application stand out for you, and what kind of are the common mistakes, perhaps, just to wrap us up on?
So I think common mistakes are not involving public and lay members. I think another one is a sort of lack of clarity and a mismatch between the aim, the method, and what people are hoping to achieve. And I think that, although I'm not a reviewer actually for this specific panel, because we thought that would potentially lead to conflicts of interest, because I'm involved in supporting quite a number of different people in developing ideas. So I'm not actually a reviewer. But I know that looking at the comments that people made, the ones that were most impressive were the clarity of the idea and the sense of the research being meaningful from the perspective of the lived experience reviewers, but being methodologically sound from the perspective of the academic reviewers.
And if anybody's watching who doesn't, I don't know, maybe they're working in IT, or they're working in something more technical, something non-clinical, non-patient or non-public facing, that doesn't currently have day-to-day or regular interaction with people with lived experience. Is there any support or advice you might give on to direct those people on where they might go to make sure that they get that input?
No, I'd really encourage people to get in contact, because within the SPIN-D network, we've got a lead for public and patient involvement, and I think she would be in a good position to give some sort of top tips about how one might engage. We've also starting to have some kind of, I don't know, we've not quite worked out what the best term is, but opportunities for people to sort of speak with members of the core lived experience group about different projects to get some ideas and reactions. And when we do our data access day in March, Emily, I think you're in contact with one of the NIHR leads who works in data analysis, which doesn't necessarily immediately lend itself to PPI involvement, but she's going to be giving us a sense about how, even if you're doing a very sort of technical IT or data-driven project, how you might still both explain some of those technical projects to people with lived experience of dementia, but also how best to sort of involve people in that work.
Thank you very much. And building in time for your ethics, don't forget that, which can always...
Oh, yes, well remembered, of course.
Well, We're at the hour, so I'm afraid we've got time. So just a reminder that I've created a short link here, which is dementiaresearch.nhr.ac.uk/SPIND. There's a link on the screen there that's got a link directly to the funding call, and of course you can go to the SPIND website, which is spindementianet.org, spindementianet.org, and there's the video that Georgina mentioned there, which you're encouraged to watch. If you don't have PPI involvement at the moment, you can reach out in advance. I think any questions you've got as well, there's details on how you can put questions if we didn't cover something that you need to know today. But again, that deadline is 31st of March for applications. And if you're struggling for ideas, but you want to apply, then hey, come to us, or of course check out the Dementia Researcher website, where we've got lots of podcasts and blogs and other things and tips for applications, for writing grants, and for patient and public involvement, for co-production, for new ideas that are coming forward. We can support you in any way we can. Thank you very much, the brilliant Stephen Kennedy, Georgina Charlesworth, and Emily as well, for your support. And any final thoughts, Georgina, before we sign off?
No, thank you very much for hosting us, Adam, and it's always a pleasure to work with you.
That's all right. I'm very excited to see what applications come through this time around. We'll see you all next time. Thank you very much.